Welcome in to the second edition of the City That Never Sleeps show. I'm your host, Brandon Pockeris, joined as always by my co-host, Austin Kane. Austin, how are we doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
I'm doing great. We had a great weekend of sports. Just ready to get into it as soon as possible.
Yep, and as a fan of certain teams, it was, an uneven weekend. Some good, some bad. And we're going to cover all of the New York sports topics that occurred this past weekend on today's show. Before we jump into that, though, want to remind you guys that All Campus is giving 20% off everything in our store, including hats and shirts to all our subscribers. So let's make sure to get on that, guys. Don't want to miss out.
Go shot all campus.
All right. So to begin our show here, we're starting off with the Jets once again. And to harken back to last week when we were talking about the Jets, they just came off beating a Pittsburgh Steelers team that was a bit depleted, a bit hurt, doesn't really have a lot of experience in the quarterback realm, a lot closer game than a lot of people thought. And coming into Miami, I said on this very show that, this is a game that would define the rest of the season going forward. That it would define how the expectations and how, the really essentially how the view of the team nationally, locally, in general is shaped for the rest of the year. First of all, to start off, the Jets had not won a division game in over, I think, 5 seasons since 2017. They
12-game
also
streak.
have not, and up to that point, won back-to-back games under this current regime, which is Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. The Jets did not just win this past weekend, they proved a point. They beat the Miami Dolphins, and we'll get into it about the specifics and ramifications of the game. But the score is the score, and you are what your record is. The Jets won the game
Yep.
40-17 at home. Their first division game win in a long time. Their first time under this new regime, winning back-to-back games. And most importantly, they are now over 500 for the first time in years. Austin, before we go into the specifics, what was your view of seeing the Jets put an absolute whooping on Miami today? Or Sunday?
Yeah. But it was a great game. I mean, there's a lot to look at in this game. And what we were saying last week, specifically with like defensive backs, they shut down Waddle and Tyreek. What they combined for 10 catches, 70 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, there's not much better you can do against those two. They're two top threats in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got John Coyle saying, "What's up, boys? Big NFL week for New York, not so much MLB." John, completely agree. We are going to get to all of that today, for better or for worse, of my personal mental state. So, to start diving deep into it, as we see with our question of the day today, Breece Hall will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Agree or disagree? And there's no other place to start with this Jets game other than Breece Hall. If we look at his stat line from the game, the guy basically had 200 yards from scrimmage. He had 97 on the ground and 2 receptions for 100 yards. The biggest reception of the day, he had a 79-yard reception where he basically dragged Miami defenders down to the 1-yard line. It was one of the best plays I've seen a Jet make in general, let alone an offensive or defensive play. It was incredible. And he's been showing this week after week after week. And even before the season started, this is something, as I've said on the first show, I cover Jets for Jets Insider as well. Being at the training camp practices, being, there for what's happening on the field, Breece Hall was showing this in August. He was showing this in late July. joint practice against the Falcons, he's ripping off 70, 80-yard runs, bursting through the hole. He just had that different type of explosiveness, that different type of, just talent that, quite frankly, the Jets have not had in recent years. They haven't had that game-breaking talent at any position, let alone the running back position, for years and years and years. So, when it comes to that, and talking about this question again, I really do think he will end up winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year, because I think he's going to continue to put up numbers like this. Not to the point of 200 scrimmage yards every week, because if he's doing that, we're having a completely different conversation about the Jets being a playoff contender, let alone threatening for a spot. But I think he's going to continue to improve. I think he's going to continue to showcase the talent that he showed at Iowa State, and then in the preseason, and now the regular season. And Austin, if you want to touch on some of the guys he may be competing against, go ahead, because I think that he's top 3 in the race, but there are some other competing players.
Yeah. So, I mean, the past 2 weeks, we've seen him break out like we knew he was going to. And so he's entered his name into this race. So he's pretty much competing against Chris Olave, Drake London, Damian Pierce. And then on the outside, you got Romeo Doubs and Kenny Pickett, since he just got full first team on the depth chart. It's going to be interesting because Olave's played great, but he is injured now. And then you got Drake London, who was playing great. I think this week he stumbled a little bit, but that's all right. He's in a tough offense to work with, and if he can become that number one guy fully, then he's going to continue to be great. And Damian Pierce, he's on the Texans, and he's really good. It's one of those players that they absolutely needed, and they got. With that guy, they can build around him. He's going to be a stud for years to come. And this year, going forward, between all of these guys, right now, I'd probably give it to Olave, but with all this injury stuff, who knows? He needs to get back on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't forget about Hall's own teammate, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's been showing that he's a very consistent wide receiver early into his career, regardless if the Jets are throwing to him. And I think that Olave and Pierce are really the two guys that will threaten Hall the most. As Brian Daly says, he agrees to the poll. He seems, as weeks go by, Breece is getting better. Exactly. He keeps showing that he's getting more comfortable. He's getting adjusted more to the NFL speed. And quite frankly, I feel like he can be the engine for this Jets offense. I feel like he can be the guy that puts the team on his back, has 20 carries for 120 yards, and as a result, which leads into our next point, makes Zach Wilson's life easier. He is playing right now, like I said, the Jimmy Garoppolo version of the 49ers that started to improve and started to look better. Wilson's not being asked to do a ton right now, and quite frankly, I feel like that's the right idea. It's the right idea because it's allowing him to get more comfortable. It's allowing him to realize he doesn't have to do everything himself. He doesn't have to realize that he has to force things. Rather, he now can let the game come to him. He can let the game develop. As I've said in some notes I made, he looks comfortable. He was effective. He looked confident. Yeah, he only threw for around 215 yards, but he was decisive. He wasn't missing the easy throws. He was under control. He had a very important rushing touchdown in this game too. So, Austin, you heard what I said about it. Do you think that having a very effective running back in Hall, along with guys like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Corey Davis, do you think that's going to allow Wilson to take that next step and become more comfortable as a player?
Yeah, I think what they did great this week, honestly, was use both their guys, Michael Carter and Breece Hall, because they allowed Breece Hall to get them there, and then use Michael Carter to get them into the end zone. And Breece still got his own touchdown too. But given that with Wilson, I mean, he looked great this week. He did what he had to do. He got the ball around to 8 different guys, which is what you like to do as a quarterback, feed everyone. Uh, he went through his reads and progressions well in the pocket. He hit the checkdowns when he had to. So with all these weapons and the O line only gave up 2 sacks, when that's happening, it's all clicking. This team's going to be great going forward. I think there's great potential there.
Absolutely agree. And, I think that a very underrated part of this Jets offense, specifically Hall's performance, is how the offensive line has adjusted in the face of insane adversity. And the poster child of this is Elijah Vera Tucker. This is a guy that has played right guard, left tackle, and right tackle in 3 separate weeks and has not only done decent, but has looked above average at all 3 spots. There was a stat that came out, a few days ago about Tucker's performance. At right tackle, he did not allow any sacks or any pressures at a position that he was playing for the first time in his career. It's incredible. It's very impressive. And to have a guy like that on top of a guy like Nate Herbig, who the Jets signed from the Eagles, that was able to slide right in the guard, on top of getting Dwayne Brown back, on top of possibly getting George Fant and Max Mitchell back. It's going from a point where a lot of people were worried about the depth of the Jets' offensive line to the point where, hey, as we go deeper in the season, this is a team that offensive line, the depth, it might become a bit of a strength. And I feel like Vera Tucker is the one to really put the credit to, because he's allowed this line to stay together. His versatility has allowed, frankly, a guy like Connor McDermott to not see the field and ruin the offensive line and cause a lot of pressure. And if we look at some stats here, according to Will Parkinson of Turn On the Jets, Vera Tucker is the number 10 ranked player at his position out of 74. And that's not including him moving all around. And then we'll touch on some of the other PFF grades. But, Austin, do you think a guy like Vera Tucker is essentially the key to this Jets offense?
I mean, it's definitely helpful when you have a guy like that, because it's not, I mean, it's definitely easier where you can move him around a lot and put him anywhere. But when his teammates, his line mates, they see that just fires them up too. They're ready to go out there and do whatever it takes to win. And when your line's clicking, that's the most important part, because your quarterback needs time back there. And it opens up the run game as well.
Absolutely. And we got some guys in the chat. Jake Friel says he agrees with the poll. Greg agrees with the poll. And then we got Frank saying Breece has been impressive. Absolutely. And with it only being week 5 going into week 6, and Breece Hall has already shown this type of talent, when I feel like a lot of people were expecting him to show this maybe week 8, week 9. It's very good for this Jets team for him to be able to show that early on. And before we move on to the defense, because I feel like the defense is just as important to why the Jets won this game, the Jets are ranked number 12 in total offense, 9th in pass, and 23rd in the run. Personally, feel like that run's going to be boosted up a bit more, especially once the insane 50 pass attempt Flacco games get more dilated and further away from the points in the season. I think that this Jets offense has a lot of potential. And I think that, regardless of facing a Miami team that was banged up on defense, no Xavier Howard, really big loss for that team. The Dolphins are still the Dolphins. And this is a team that really has showed that they can compete with anyone. They competed with Buffalo. And yes, that was with their full team essentially. But how many times, and Austin, you can relate to this, I feel like a lot, having an outside view of the Jets. How many times have the Jets been down to their third string quarterback, or the Jets have been down their entire offensive line, or down their entire receiver group? No one cared when they were beating the Jets. It was just, ha ha, Jets suck, Jets lost. Now it's flipped, and it's excuse. In the NFL, injuries happen. It's the worst part of any sport, but injuries happen, and a win is a win. And I feel like that's the most important takeaway of this Jets game, and it's even more so on the defensive side, because the Dolphins lost Teddy Bridgewater from the beginning of the game because of a Sauce Gardner sack. They were running with Skylar Thompson. Tyreek Hill is banged up. Jalen Waddle's banged up. They lost their left tackle. But these things happen. And on defense, I'll start off with this. Sauce Gardner, it looks like the defensive rookie of the year to me. He looks like one of the top corners, if not a top corner in football. He had a pick. He had the safety. He looked great in the secondary along with DJ Reed. And then you got Carl Lawson, who had 7 quarterback pressures by himself, a strip sack, and a fumble recovery. It's very impressive that Lawson's got up to this speed already. But I mentioned those two guys. Is there anyone else on the Jets defense that really stuck out to you?
It's just like the whole thing, the whole defense. Honestly, like this team just played great this week. They played shutdown football. They really just weren't able to do anything on them when they had to. I was gonna go with the Carl Lawson strip sack. Honestly, that's just game changing. And just like their offense, their defense knows how to win in the fourth quarter. They just know how to shut teams down when they have to and get the stops that they need.
Yeah, I mean, there was a cool stat I saw that the Jets have like a plus 15 point differential in the fourth quarter alone, which is
Yeah.
insane. It just shows that this coaching staff, for all the warts, and there are warts, that they have this team ready to play for 4 quarters, that they have this team ready to close out games. And it seems like a small bar to clear, but this has been something that has plagued the Jets for year after year after year. Not being able to play full games and not being able to close out games. And like you said, this defense had an incredible game. Yes, it was against Skylar Thompson, but for so long that it wouldn't matter. Like, the Jets would just play to their opponent's level. This is that next step where the Jets faced a team in their current state that they were definitely better than, and they took care of business. It wasn't always like that, but then they scored 21 in the fourth quarter and made it so. Also touching on this, Quentin Williams looks like an all-pro, had another sack, had an awesome highlight, just pummeling Tyreek Hill to the turf. You love to see that out of him.
Stiff arm.
John Franklin Myers.
Wish he got in.
Yeah, it would have been incredible. John Franklin Myers and Bryce Huff had great games too. But, I feel like put a bow on it, wrap up the Miami game. It's time to move on to next week. And next week is very important because the Jets face the Green Bay Packers. And this is something where you get to see the next evolution of this Jets team. Because as we'll touch on after we finish our Jets convo, the Giants beat the Packers. And whether you want to consider the Giants to be legit for real, or you want to consider the Packers to be not as good as everyone thought, wherever you fall on that, this is still a team in the Packers that has Aaron Rodgers, that has a superstar quarterback. This is a team that has a very good defense. We talked all last week about how the Jets need to make that leap, how they need to show that consistency. And they did. They're 3-2. They're in second place in the AFC East. They are firmly right now in the playoff hunt. This game is that next step because, look, tell me if I'm wrong, Austin, but I think this is a game that the Jets can win. I don't think that this is something where, oh, the Jets are going to just get stomped out on the road. I really think that this is going to be a close game. And most importantly, I think this is a game that if the Jets run a smart game plan, they rely on Breece Hall. If they find Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson in the passing game a bit more, which, hey, that's one of the criticisms I've had, but you can't criticize much in a 40-17 win. But I think if you do those things and the defense, specifically the pressure, capitalizes on a bit of a weaker Green Bay offensive line than in recent years, I think they have a good shot to, at the very least, make this a full competitive game. But I think they also have a good shot to win.
Yeah, I think Jets definitely going to compete in this one. Like you said, this Packers team, they're a little weaker than they've been before on the O-line and then the weapons. But the Jets already shown that they can shut down the big-time weapons. We just saw them shut down Tyreek and Waddle. Now they have to shut down the big-time quarterback, which Aaron Rodgers, we know, will not be an easy task. I think they can do it for sure. It's just will they?
Yeah, we got Jeff in the chat saying he loves the hats. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
That is my father for anyone that wants to know. That's him. So give him a shout. But flipping back to this, if you look at the matchups, right? Jair Alexander's been banged up. So that's the Packers' best corner. Obviously, they have some other effective guys. It's going to be a battle for the receivers regardless. I would focus more on, once again, feeding Breece Hall, giving him the run that, he showed he deserved this past week against a team like Miami. My bigger focus, and I feel like this has been a consistent theme when I've been talking about the Jets, is defense. Carl Lawson, if he keeps up what he's doing, is going to wreak havoc in the backfield. If Quinn and Williams and JFM, if the whole defensive line continues their performance from this past week, they're going to keep the Jets in the game. And most importantly for me in this game, if Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed do their jobs, Aaron Rodgers is not going to have many places to go with the football. This is the first team, if you really think about it, that doesn't have that number one receiver to deal with. Let's go through the Jets schedule. Truly. Baltimore. Okay. Quote unquote, no number one receiver. Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay are still solid players. So that's really the one where I could say, okay, they didn't really have the quote unquote receivers, but I consider Lamar Jackson the ultimate weapon.
I was about to say he's a weapon himself. It's a totally different ball game when you're playing them.
Exactly. The Browns, Amari Cooper, who absolutely blowtorched them in that game. The next game, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. We saw what happened in that game. The Steelers, Deontay, Pickens, Claypool, and then this past week, Waddle and Tyreek. So, there have been games where the Jets have shut down their receivers. I mean, look at the Steelers game. Look at the Miami game. They've shown that they can do it. And as Ted says, it's a big-time quarterback with no weapons and the corpse of Cobb. Yeah, exactly. So while you do have to prepare for the threat that Aaron Rodgers is, and don't get me wrong here, Aaron Rodgers is still a legitimate threat. This is a guy that has shown time and time again that he can carve up any defense. It's just a matter of if he doesn't have anywhere to go with the ball and you're forcing him into these check down situations, you're going to make your life so much easier. And as Ted says once again, the Packers' run defense has been non-existent since 2017. That's where Breece Hall and Michael Carter come into play. That's where you lean on them again. And frankly, that's how you win the game. I feel like that's the key to the Jets winning this game. And I'll put my money where my mouth is. Prediction wise, I think the Jets win this game 30-27 or 28-24. I think the Jets do win this game, move to 4-2. And when we come on this show next week, we're talking about, hey, can the Jets be 6-3 by the bye week in beating Denver, in beating New England, and probably losing to Buffalo because Buffalo is
Insane.
the best team in football. But yeah, I once again, it's about the last thing I'll say about this before I give Austin the floor. It's about leveling up. You know, the Jets hadn't won in September. They did that. The Jets hadn't won a real game in October in a while, like a real meaningful one. They did that. They hadn't won a divisional game in years. They did that. They hadn't had a winning record early in the season in years. They did that. This is your next step. This is your next step in showing that you're ready to turn that corner, that they are turning that corner, and that in a much shorter time period than a lot of people, especially the national media, thinks, that this team is ready to compete and be a threat in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. It's big test right here. Will they do it? I'll give you my prediction. They're going to compete. It's going to be a close one. And like you said, if they can control time possession and just piece down that Packers defense and run the ball on them all game, they could win it. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't like to lose twice in a row. I'm going to give it 20-17 Packers.
And to add on to my prediction, I say Breece Hall has about 110 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown, and Sauce Gardner has his second career NFL interception. So those are my predictions for the game. Those were Austin's predictions for the game. And now it's time to move on to another achieving New York team. The other New York football team, and quite frankly, you could argue the better New York football team. The Giants are 4-1. And flashing back to an earlier comment, as Blue City Empire called last week on the show, New York Giants were undefeated in London, and they still are. They are now 3-0 playing in London. Great call by you there, Blue City. Honestly, it's shaping up that my prediction is looking a lot better. That, this Giants team is a real dark horse for the playoffs. And Austin, I took over for the Jets, gave you the rundown with everything. Start us off here. What about this Giants game made you look there as you're watching and be like, damn, this team might be for real?
When you watch this team and just the growth, but not even just from last year, just as the weeks keep going and people just like keep saying Giants are frauds, and then they go out and beat Aaron Rodgers. It's just, you can tell the coaching has improved so much. I think Dable and his staff has just proved how much coaches matter in this league. Their defense was coming in here hurt, and they continue to adjust all game long. In the first half, we saw Daniel Jones not moving at all, too much, not running. And then second half comes out, and he's doing a bunch of bootlegs, play action. This Giants team, Dable just knows what he's doing with these guys, and he has it planned out. Just like their game plans are perfect, it seems, because they know when they have to lean on Saquon because he came in, got hurt, and came back and carried this team again. They threw in some trickery with the Bellinger touchdown was on a double reverse, and then they threw in more Wildcat. So if they can keep confusing teams and playing good football like this, they're going to be a good football team going forward. And I know I said last week, Daniel Jones, QB the future, probably not. He's proving me wrong week by week. He's just getting better.
Yeah, it ties back to what I said, where, you know, if Jones can do enough and this Giants team can just continue to be built around him, there's no reason he can't be a game manager and just guide the team. I mean, I keep coming back to this. It's the Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo style. And Cousins obviously does a bit more, but you could argue Jones is more in that mold. He runs. He has that athletic ability that opens things up for Dable, Mike Kafka, and the offense. We got Taylor Bowers in the chat. LOL. I don't think he agrees with the Giants talk right now. You know, it's understandable. Like I'm not. I'm aware that this is, you know, the type of run, and this ties back to the Jets too, where it's like, oh, you know, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for, oh, this team isn't for real. They're gonna go lose 5 straight and be picking like the top 10, top 15 of the draft again. But it's like, if you watch them every week and you watch the type of teams that the Giants have played too, and specifically this Packers game, this showed that Brian Dable is moving this Giants team in the right direction, and he was and is the right person for this job. The thing I want to touch on with the Giants is Darius Slayton, you know, buried on the depth chart, and it takes injuries to every single wide receiver for him to come in, and he looks good. He looks good. He has the most receiving yards with 79 in for the team in the game. Saquon putting the team on his back, like I said last week. He is just incredible to watch. He is a top 5, if not like top 3 total NFL player for me to watch when I'm just watching football in general, because at any time, he's the type of player that can just rip off a 75-yard touchdown run, make 5 people miss, and it's just a joy to watch. And it's so much better to see him healthy and achieving this rather than the injury-riddled, sapped athleticism version of Saquon we've had the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, when he's fully healthy, you just see how explosive he is in the passing game, running game, wherever you want to put him as quarterback. He can just do it all. He's a very good football player, and I'm just happy to watch him now that he's back fully.
Yep, and before we move on to talking about the Giants defense, I want to remind you guys once again that all campus, one second here, all campus is giving 20% off of everything in our store, including hats and shirts to all our subscribers. Make sure you take advantage of that, guys. It's a deal you don't want to miss out on. So make sure to check them out and keep enjoying the show. Like, subscribe, and just we're going to keep rolling on here. And before we get back to the Giants, I want to just touch on this. Wearing a shirt says it's okay to not be okay. I got it right here if I stand up real quick. It's from Jets Lounge. Great site. Great people over there. Go check it out. Honoring worldwide mental health day, National Health Day. You know, it's a very important message. Just make sure that, you know, you're always checking in on people, always, you know, making sure people are okay. Because quite frankly, I know I can relate to this 100%. You really don't know ever what someone's 100% going through. And it's important to always, you know, check in and make sure that the people that you care about are okay, because, you know, life can be tough sometimes. And, you know, sometimes all it takes is for someone to say, you know, how are you doing? And hope you're having a good day. And that can change someone's entire perspective. So it's a great message to get behind. It's a shirt that I fully support. It's a message that I fully support. And, you know, it's something that I find very important. So wanted to remind you guys of that all today. Austin, got anything to touch on with that?
Brandon, you know, you can reach out to me, anyone in these chats. My Instagram handle, Austin Kane 1047. I can talk to you. But no, don't, just be kind. Just be kind.
Yep. And on that note, it's time to move back to football talk, because football makes everyone feel good. It's a nice way to bring everyone together and enjoy a sport that is just very important to people and very fun to watch. So on the Giants defensive side of things, just wow. Honestly, like that's my first statement. It's Wink Martindale has this defensive team being just on a different level. It's honestly insane. Like the third down defense, getting the pressure, just making Aaron Rodgers honestly just take dives at times and take sacks in a sense where you would never really expect him to do that in that sense. And locking down Romeo Doubs and Alan Lazard and forcing the checkdowns to Aaron Jones at times and really just stalling out the Packers offense. Quite frankly, it was very, very impressive from the Giants defensive side to watch.
Yeah, they all game, I mean, except for like the first 3 drives, maybe they were all over the place. They let the Packers get out to like a quick, I think it was like 7-0 lead right off the bat, and they didn't fall back from that. They were down 17-3 at the time, and they looked kind of done for. And all the momentum was with Green Bay, but they stuck in there, and they did what they had to do. They made the adjustments they had to. Sometimes they had 7 D backs in there. I guess what was that called? Quarter defense, Brandon?
Quarters, yes.
Yeah. Just throwing different looks at him. Fooling him is what they did, and getting the pressure there also makes things a lot easier. And one thing that I think they did that was kind of underrated in this game on the last play of it, typically, like you'll see teams rush 3 at Rodgers on these Hail Mary attempts and give him all this time in the pocket and let him heave one downfield, which he's actually really great at at doing. They brought 4, and look what happened. Got a strip sack, couldn't even get a throw off, no chance to even win the game for the Packers.
Yeah, it was a very impressive comeback. The Giants sustained a multi-point, double-digit comeback from a deficit that honestly they looked down and out from. And it just shows the resiliency and the really talent of the coaching staff to really make sure that the team is consistently ready to play and knows that they're not out of the game until it's over. And that brings me to my next point, because if you thought the Green Bay game was a proving ground, goodness gracious, this next one is an even bigger one. The New York Giants are taking on the Baltimore Ravens at home. It's a 1:00 game. It's at MetLife. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when they face a team of that caliber. And I'll start off here. If the Giants' pressure can be on the same level that it was in the back half of the game, not beginning half, but back half of the game against Rodgers, I think they have a shot to slow down Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that they are, because quite frankly, no one really slows down Lamar Jackson. But I think they have a shot. And especially considering Wink Martindale is the ex-Baltimore defensive coordinator. He saw Lamar every day in practice. So you would think that out of most coaches in the league, most defensive coordinators, the guy that should have the best game plan to stop Lamar Jackson is the guy that was in his own backyard for multiple years.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge key piece. When you get to see a guy every day for so many years, you're going to learn what he does. And when you're already defensive minded, I'm sure he probably has some sort of way he knows he could stop him. I don't want to say stop him, contain him, because Lamar's going to get his. That's just a key piece to their offense. And for the Giants, they might be able to get the pressure on him in the pocket, but you can't let him escape that pocket, because once he does and he's a free runner, it's very hard to stop.
Exactly. And I think the other big key is, can Daniel Jones do enough against Baltimore? And can more realistically, can Saquon and Daniel Jones do enough against Baltimore? Personally, I think Saquon's going to have another great game, because he's shown nothing this year, and especially against a Packers defense that has a bit more talent, healthier at the moment than Baltimore. I think Saquon's going to have another great game, whether it's having more effectiveness in the passing game than the run game. I feel like that's more likely. Baltimore's run defense is pretty good. Or, Saquon having like a few short rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to have a very good game. But I think that if Daniel Jones plays a very similar to how he looked in the back half of the Green Bay game, if they get him on the move, if they get maybe like one or two receivers back, maybe Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe Kadarius Toney, then I think the Giants have a much better shot than if they're working with Darius Slayton and guys that personally I've never heard of before this year, or guys that really haven't had an NFL shot before this year. Prediction-wise, I'm going to have to go with a Giants loss. I think it is a close game, though. I am not predicting a blowout here. I think that this is more of your 20-17 low-scoring type game. I think Saquon accounts for most of the Giants' offense. I think Daniel Jones has a decent game. I don't think he costs you the game. But I think both defenses just have a slugfest back and forth. And the key of the game and the winner of the game is going to come down to whoever breaks through the defense first.
Yeah, for my prediction, I just hate to say it because I've been talking so great about this Giants team in this portion, but this Ravens team I just said last week is going to just go on this rapid tear and not lose another game for a while. So I'm going to have to give it to Baltimore on the win. Score-wise, somewhere like 20. We'll give it 27-17 Ravens.
Like the sound of that. And we're going to transition into around the NFL talk. And this ties perfectly into a comment that Ted left because this still kind of ties into the Giants because of their division. And we'll touch on some AFC stuff with the Jets a little bit later. Ted asked, I know this is an NFC East show, but what do you guys think about Ron Rivera throwing Carson Wentz under the bus yesterday at his press conference? I feel like this is a great place to start because, the Washington Tennessee game did not go the way Washington wanted to. If we look at the stats, Ryan Tannehill only threw for 181 yards, and they got absolutely gashed by Derrick Henry on the ground, 28 for 102. But looking at the Commanders side, Carson Wentz had to throw a ball 38 times. He threw for 359 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he cost them the game. That costly turnover at the end of the game that Wentz had, it cost them the game, Washington. And I feel like, especially for Washington, I wouldn't call Ron Rivera's seat hot just yet, but I think a quote like that is a absolute telltale sign of someone that is feeling the pressure. And I feel like I've watched enough football, listened to enough press conferences to know when someone's feeling the pressure. Nobody randomly throws a player under the bus for no reason. When things are going good, yeah, especially the quarterback. When things are going good, you do not toss someone 10 feet under the bus and then let the bus run them over. It just doesn't happen.
No, not at all. I personally thought before the year that Ron Rivera's seat was going to be warm throughout the year, and who knows what will happen going forward. But it's odd because he said that, and then like 2 seconds after started like complimenting him, saying he's done great things, and there's just like a few things that he hasn't been so great on. But like you said, they let Derrick Henry just absolutely destroy him this week. And obviously, that's a very tough task to do. But you said this as well, that Tannehill did not look all that great. Their passing game is not all that great. It's a game they definitely could have won. And if Wentz doesn't throw that pick at the end and they score a touchdown, we're not even talking about this. But he did, and Rivera threw him under the bus.
Exactly. And remember this, the Washington defense is supposed to be like their best unit. It's supposed to be the unit that carries the team. And for the better part of 2 years, it has been absolutely terrible. It does not look good.
And you
And
can't throw all that on. I mean, maybe you can, but Chase Young being out doesn't help. But there's other improvements than just that spot.
yeah, but like Chase Young doesn't cover up issues in the run game like by himself. Like
Yeah,
that
no,
it's not something that like he's solely responsible for.
no, not at all. And when he comes back, I'm sure this defense will improve a lot, but he's not back and you're 1-4.
Well, I mean,
So,
well, hold on. Like also remember, like last year when he was healthy, the Washington defense was still terrible.
well, yeah, that too. I mean, I guess so. So I guess Washington just stinks. How about
I don't think that's too far-fetched to
that?
say. And then expanding around the rest of the NFC East, if we want to bounce around to those games, you know, the Cowboys Rams game, man. Look, there are two observations you can make from this game. And it depends on if you want to be optimistic for one side or absolutely downright pessimistic and just morbid for the other side. The optimistic side, which I'll take, Austin, I'll leave the bad news side to you. The Cowboys are a legit team. They they are relying on the strength of Micah Parsons as Superman and their defense and the running game with Pollard and Zeke. And they are consistently beating good teams with Cooper Rush. They are winning games with Cooper Rush. It is setting up a nice showdown, a three-way showdown, in my opinion, between the Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles for this division. I personally think the Giants are more of the wild card team, with the Dallas Cowboys and Eagles more focused on the higher half with the division. But, I'm taking the more optimistic side because I think that if you asked any Dallas fan, I mean, Austin, if we asked Jack this question after Prescott got injured, I feel like we know exactly the answer we would get. But if you asked any Dallas Cowboys fan that question, they would be over the moon if you said they were 4-1 heading into week 6. That they were one of the better teams in football with Cooper Rush throwing for, and let me get this stat right, 102 yards in an NFL game. He ended with 102 yards and they won by double digits.
I mean, you can't draw it up much better.
And now
And
Ted's leaning right into our pessimistic side. Austin, we'll give you the floor
yep.
here.
Yeah, Rams, I mean, just all season, man, just haven't shown up for the task that they were given after winning the Super Bowl. Last week we saw it versus the 49ers, and then this week, like you said, it's a hurt Dallas team who is just pummeling through all of that adversity. Matt Stafford, I mean, not the greatest game. This offense just moves slow. The running game is just out the window. Cam Akers just hasn't been the guy everyone thought he would be coming into this season. And Cooper Kupp, I mean, what are you going to do about him? He's always going to ball. This offense just hasn't clicked. Their defense, it's still got the top guys. They have to just come together fully and fight through this adversity, and hopefully they'll bounce back.
Yeah. I'm gonna touch on the Rams real quick, man. I just I it's one thing to have a Super Bowl hangover, right? It's one thing to have a bit of a down season after winning the Super Bowl. It's another thing to absolutely crater. And I know that the Rams have lost a lot. Andrew Whitworth, Odell Beckham, other pieces along their offensive line. But their offensive line looks like one of the worst in football. Matt Stafford has the googly eyes for Cooper Kupp on every single play to the point where and we saw it last week with the San Francisco game, that defenses are literally jumping screen passes designed for Kupp.
That's all they.
And that's
That's all they
and that's
got.
and that's not just because, oh my God, Stafford's only targeting him. No, it's because he doesn't trust anyone else on this offense, and they don't have much on their offense outside of Kupp. You could argue Tyler Higbee. You could argue Allen Robinson if they ever would throw him the ball. Cam Akers does not have the explosiveness yet that he's going to probably have as he continues to build up. Remember, he came back so early off the Achilles injury that people thought was borderline superhuman. Darrell Henderson is not a 3-down back. You can't block in the run. There's nothing going right for this Rams team. And it doesn't matter how good you are on defense. Because don't get me wrong, the Rams still have a good defense. But these guys are still human. If you're going on the field almost all the time because your offense is 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, turnover, 3 and out, you're going to give up points. These guys, everyone's in the NFL for a reason. And these coaches are going to be able to score points if they're getting opportune field position and they're getting on the field consistently. The Rams are definitely frauds, 100%. And we got some fantasy questions in the chat. First one, and this before we move on to the rest of the NFL slate. How far off is the guy offering me Bellinger for Romeo? It's a 1.5 tight end premium in Dynasty. What more should I ask for? I can start up to 3 tight ends if I want. I already have Kelsey and Andrews starting. The Bellinger being referenced in this is Daniel Bellinger for Romeo Dobbs. You know, I feel like dynasty-wise, it's tough because, you know, Bellinger and Dobbs are kind of wild cards in the sense that, you know, Dobbs, they have Christian Watson there. They have Allen Lazard. Who knows if they want to add a legitimate number one going forward, which that would then change their entire dynasty outlook. Versus Bellinger, you know, he's the number one tight end. You don't know how things are going to go with him in dynasty. I personally would hold off on the trade because you already got Kelsey and Andrews. I feel like Dobbs can give you enough potential this year where if you have the feeling that something is going to happen with him, that you can then flip Dobbs for a different asset. And then we got a second question. Austin, if you want to take this one. Should I trade Judy and Higbee for Keenan and Schultz? I have Hurst on my bench.
Oh, should I trade Judy? Keenan scares me. We've seen in the past the injuries just bugging him over and over. It's happening kind of like right now. Judy, he's hurt. Is he back yet?
He's hurt. He played last week.
Oh, okay, cool. Judy and Higbee. I'm taking Keenan and Schultz, especially if Hurst on your bench. He's been balling too. If you need, what do you think, Brandon?
I feel like Higbee and Keenan kind of cancel each other out, and then it's really like, or Higbee and I personally would keep Judy and Higbee because I think Judy's going to be more involved at some point, and Tyler Higbee's getting like 8 targets a game. Keenan Allen with the hamstring scares me a lot because he's getting up there a bit in age. He's 31, 32 range. And then Dalton Schultz just got hurt again, and he had 0 targets, or he had no receptions in the game with minimal targets. And that's not, I feel like that's not going to change much, especially if he's already banged up. So I would tend to avoid that trade if I could. And so to circle back to Ted's comment, Rams and Broncos are frauds. Okay. Full disclaimer here, guys. The Thursday night football game from this past week might have been the worst game I have ever watched in my entire life. I seriously wish I was exaggerating when I said like that previous statement. Offense, non-existent. Like I get that the Broncos have a decent offense, decent defense. I get that the Colts have a decent defense. But Matt Ryan is cooked like barbecue chicken cooked. And I don't know what happened to Russell Wilson. So, Austin, if you want to talk me off the ledge a little bit, go ahead, because I got nothing.
I mean, I don't even know what to say about the Broncos. I can't watch the team in prime time anymore. But guess what? They have Monday Night Football this week. Woo-hoo.
I thought that
It's
was a
just
joke.
continuous.
Seriously?
I mean, unless it was a joke, but I really don't think it was. But yeah, I just can't watch any more bad play from Russell Wilson and bad coaching from Nathaniel Hackett. It's just continuous, and they're definitely frauds. And that game the other night, Amazon Prime paid what, $1 billion for that for that the other day. It's garbage.
Look, and I obviously reports have come out that, oh, Wilson has a partially torn lat and, different things that are happening with him. I don't care about that in the sense that obviously, you want players to be okay, but like I don't care in the sense that he's still missing his read. There's guys consistently open middle of the field, down the field that he just is not seeing. It's not just a physical thing, it's a mental and processing thing. He's not seeing wide open guys. Now, is that because he doesn't want to, or is it because that the play isn't designed like that? Frankly, I don't have the answers for that because that changes different things. You see sometimes the highlights of, oh, this guy's wide open. Why didn't the quarterback throw it to him? Well, it's because he wasn't in the progression. He wasn't in the read. It was a route that was more so, quote unquote, what play callers like to call window dressing, that really gets guys open for the different play underneath. The problem is there are the plays that Wilson is not seeing, I'm pretty sure are in his reads, and he just isn't pulling the trigger. It scares me. And the Broncos are this type of team where I'm not confident in them. I had high hopes coming into the year, and I am not confident in them whatsoever.
No, not at all. I mean, they gotta improve now or never. Russ banged up. We'll see.
All right, I'm gonna whip around some of the other games. Lions, Patriots. I think the Lions might be a bit of a fraud. I think that this is something that was realistic, and especially with having Jared Goff as your quarterback, it's not great to be shut out. It's not great for a Lions team that was quote unquote rolling to be shut out. But to add the necessary context, because context is always important, you are without DeAndre Swift. You're without DJ Shark. You're with a banged up Amon-Ra, and Josh Reynolds is basically your healthiest wide receiver target. So if it's a week over week consistency thing, like after the bye week for Detroit that they have this week, then I'll be more concerned. But I'm not. I'm going to kind of put water under the bridge where, okay, maybe the expectations were a little too high, but I'm not ready to call Dan Campbell a complete failure because of one game.
Yeah, no, I mean, going up against Belichick, and the Patriots just played old school here. It felt like just like ground and pound and good defense, and that's kind of what happened. They just beat them real bad, and I agree. The expectations for this Lions offense definitely a little too high, especially when they're super banged up.
Chargers, Browns. Hey guys, Austin Eckler and Nick Chubb are good. Next.
Yep, that's what I said. I said they controlled this game.
Texans, Jaguars. Okay. I don't think we are there yet. And I want to just make that crystal clear, because what I am going to say right now might be a little blasphemous to some people. Pretty soon, it might be time to have a talk about Trevor Lawrence. And I loved Lawrence coming out of college. Like I thought he was like the dude. If he keeps having performances like this, especially against the Texans, who aren't terrible, but they have let up a lot of points to a lot of different teams. It might be time to have a talk about Mr. Lawrence and what he is doing as quarterback, because let's be honest, the difference between him and Zach Wilson and him and Davis Mills and some of the other guys in the class is really not that big.
No, not at all. This was a very ugly game for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I thought it was one where the Jaguars, I mean, once again, maybe overhyped a little bit, but I thought they were going to come out, they were just going to dominate and handle business. They did not do that. Trevor Lawrence did not look good, and they lost the game to the Houston Texans, which is always a tough one.
Yeah, it's rough for Jacksonville because I feel like the season might have completely flipped on them in a bad way if this pattern continues. Next game, Bucks Falcons. I'm not sure how you want to touch on this one. I think Atlanta is I understand the perception around them in regards to fantasy in terms of, oh my goodness, he won't give Drake London or Kyle Pitts the ball. This guy Arthur Smith is terrible. Except he isn't, because if we're going to be 100% honest here, the Falcons probably should have won this game if not for one of the most absurd roughing the passer penalties I have ever seen.
Yeah,
and I feel like there is
that.
Yeah. I feel like there's been a pattern of just, this is the most blank thing I've ever seen, especially this week. But
yeah, you see last night.
Yeah, it's just, I think the Falcons are moving in the right direction, despite what some people would say because of, looking at it through a fantasy lens.
Yeah, 100%. Like this game, it was the Bucks game until the fourth. They kind of just like slipped up at the end there, and the Falcons didn't look all that bad, like you were saying. Mariota, I mean, he's not going to do anything crazy. He's just going to control the game, try and keep him in it as much as he can. Seems like their game plan is to run the ball a lot. I mean, Algier, 13 for 45, and then Mariota can run as well. And they also have Huntley there too. So running the ball on this Bucks D isn't always the best approach, but it almost worked.
Yeah, and Ted, your comment, yeah, I agree. Doug Peterson could be good for him. And, Davis Mills hasn't looked great, and he's not on the level of Lawrence. I fully understand and agree with that. My thing is more of, okay, if Lawrence continues to play like this, where if he's up and if he bounces back and has a 3-touchdown, 250-yard performance, then I'm like, okay, yeah, he's able to bounce back. He's able to move forward. My thing is more of, if we keep seeing the 6, 10, 12-point performances out of Lawrence, even after the upgraded weapons and even after more and more time under Peterson, then I feel like it's more of a concern and it's time to start to worry. And there really isn't that big of a gap between any of these rookie quarterbacks. Like, it's been very close since the point they've gotten in the league.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's from that class at all has fully taken the next step and become that guy yet.
No, and Wilson, Fields, Lance, Mills, Jones, Lawrence, none of them are like, quote unquote, the dude yet. And quite frankly, none of them are fully, I mean, they're moving towards it, but they're not at that level where I can be like, yeah, this guy's officially taken the leap.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Steelers lost 38-3 to the Bills. The Bills are a wagon. Austin, anything to talk about your Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, a little bit. Kenny Pickett got his first start, and when you throw him under the bus, as like you got the Bills pinned in on their 2, you think, oh, third down, we're gonna get Kenny the ball right away in good field position off a punt. No, Gabe Davis, 98-yard touchdown. Oh, what do you do on the next kickoff? You fumble the kickoff. That's great. They almost went down 10. Should have been down 10-0 if it wasn't for a blocked field goal. So you throw Kenny in a hole like that versus one of the best teams in football, and you're just screwed. He didn't play that bad. One pick on trying to force a deep ball. Over 300 yards, which, I mean, I guess when you got to throw it all game, that's what's going to happen. Najee Harris, not that great right now. It's got to figure it out back there in the backfield. I know his O-line's not helping him too much, but he does have to hit the holes when they're there. And George Pickens is going to be a stud. That's all I got on that.
Sounds good. And before we move on to the next game, I just want to remind you guys once again that All Campus is giving 20% off everything in our store, including hats and shirts to all our subscribers. So make sure to get on that, guys. It's a deal you do not want to miss out on. Next game, we got Vikings Bears. This one for me, Justin Fields is starting to, move a little bit more in the right direction. And I feel like the biggest thing with Fields is not the fact that, he's good, bad. I feel like he just needs to be given a shot. And if he's given a shot, then I can make a better, full, well-rounded evaluation of him. But I just need to see a team that's invested in him give him everything that he needs to potentially thrive as a quarterback. Because quite frankly, the Bears don't have that right now. And they're not, and the fact that it's his first game throwing the ball more than like 15 times is kind of insane.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, he didn't look bad at all. He once again used his legs when he had to, got out of the pocket pretty fast. But I mean, he didn't play bad at all. And now on the other side, Kirk played pretty good. I'm ready to name. I mean, I know you been ready to do it, but Jefferson. I think Jefferson's top 2 or 1 with Kupp. I think if Kupp's not getting every single target in the world, it's definitely Jefferson. But it's definitely a debate there. And then we saw Dalvin get in the end zone twice, so that's always good to see.
I know you were happy with that, Austin. Don't lie to us.
Yeah, but I got heartbroken last night.
We'll get to that. Don't worry. Yeah. Just to run through the last few afternoon games. Seahawks Saints. Taysom Hill is the ultimate weapon, and Geno Smith is #good.
Yep. We'll get to see some Kenneth Walker going forward.
Absolutely. 49ers Panthers. We got our first hot take hit of the season, because my hot take that the Carolina Panthers were in deep trouble and that Matt Rule would be gone very soon hit, because Matt Rule got fired. And no surprise there, the Panthers, with a lot of talent on that roster, are just frankly not good right now and look destined for a top 5 NFL draft pick.
Yeah. 100%.
Speaking of not looking good right now, the Cardinals, they lost to the Eagles 2017. Two-pronged takeaway from that. Number one, the Eagles win in every single aspect possible, whether they have a good game, bad game, dominant game. Every type of form, they have found a way to win. They are the contender in the NFC right now. I will stand by that. I will fully put that out there until that is not true. They are the contender in the NFC. And on the other hand, all right, is Cliff Kingsbury the next coach fired? Because I think he is. Because Kyler Murray is having to do everything by himself in the fourth quarter to even give the Cardinals a shot at winning football games.
Yeah, I mean, every other day or every other game, you see like Kyler just making some like Madden type play where he runs around, just almost dead back there and just pulls it out somehow. But yeah, and he'll get D-Hop back, was it next week, I think. So that's going to be a huge addition to this offense, and hopefully maybe it'll take them in the right step with a bunch of season left. They just got to stay in it and get back to where they want to.
Ravens Bengals. Just a
Tucker's the
battle, but
closer.
yeah, battle between two division rivals. Justin Tucker is the best kicker in football.
He needs the Diaz walkout song. Imagine.
I don't want to. We'll get to all of this in a minute or two, and then finally the aforementioned heartbreaker. The Chiefs beat the Raiders 30-29, and to give you guys a little bit of insight behind the curtain here, there were two separate fantasy games in our shared league that myself and Austin had. I went into the night up 9 points. Team underachieved a little bit, facing Darren Waller and Juju Smith-Schuster. I ended up winning the game by 3 points. My friend Austin here, on the other hand, he wasn't so lucky. Austin, you want to explain? You want to explain what happened, bud?
Yeah, going to the night, I'm up 30, give or take a few points. Going against Travis Kelce. I'm thinking maybe I should be all right. Project to win by like 20 still or something, like 15. And I see Kelsey's kind of getting shut down a little bit, 20, or at that point, probably like 10 yards in the first half, not doing much. End of the half, scores a touchdown, no big deal. And then boom, 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 boom. All they do is just score to Kelsey, score to Kelsey. Doesn't do anything anywhere else in the field. Once he gets to the red zone, game over. It's just unfair. Just surround them. 5 guys.
Not what you like to hear, but that wraps up our NFL coverage for the week. Stay tuned for next week when we talk about another 2 New York football victories, right?
We'll see.
All right, so it's time for me to leave the show now, right? Because we're talking baseball, right?
Yeah, Ted said it himself. Phil's win, baby. Ring the bell, Ted. Ring the bell.
Yeah, I'm sad, guys. I'm sad because it's time to talk about my World Series NL pick in the Mets. The Mets lost in 3 to the San Diego Padres. I'll be honest with you. 2 of the 3 games were not close. The way I've come to grips with this is the Mets season was a failure, but it wasn't failure at the same time. It was because at 101 wins, you cannot get eliminated in the wild card round. Just simply, you can't. At the same time, they were one of the most talented teams in baseball for the better part of 5 months. They faltered in September, and quite frankly, they ran out of gas. And it's like the mourning period. I feel it. It's just like, but it's not what you wanted out of this type of season. You thought this season was different, and it isn't. And I see Austin smirking on the other side of the screen because I know he is just reveling, just absolutely reveling in the fact that the Phillies are still alive and the Mets aren't. And you know what? There's nothing you can say to that. The Phillies played the Cardinals. Ted, just to yes, I am, unfortunately. It's a part of the New York City that never sleeps. Just bravado I have. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, look, if you're a Mets fan, at the end of the day, you can make all excuses. It's the Phillies didn't play the Padres. The Padres underachieved the entire year. The Padres have a sick 1-2-3 punch of pitching rotation. The Phillies played the Cardinals, who weren't that. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, as we'll get to, because we cover baseball here too, guys, don't worry. The Phillies are still alive and they're playing good. Newsflash, they won today. They're up in the series, as we said that they would compete. And the Mets season is over. So I'm going to do the most dreaded thing I have done on this show. Austin, what's your view on the Mets, buddy?
Oh, dude, what happened? I mean, Jeff, I hope you're still listening to this too. This was the fallout. The no hitter back in whenever, the 7-1 comeback, it means nothing. Take your 101 wins and shove them up you know where, because we're still playing baseball. We got a game this Friday, 4 o'clock in Citizens Bank, the first one in 11 years. It's going to be nuts. And the Phillies up in the series now, 1-0 with Wheeler and Nola still to pitch. It's awesome. But on the Mets, just a brutal collapse. Scherzer, that first game, not what you wanted at all. He just got hit around the ballpark, home run, home run, home run, home run, home run. And it goes on. But it was just bad. It's like, because if he wins that game, there's still talks about, okay, we could potentially hold off on DeGrom, which I honestly think they throw in the second game either way. But they didn't win the first one. They had to win the first one, and they did not win the first one.
Yep, that's all you can say. The aces didn't pitch like aces. You got one run and like basically like 2 hit and your 2 losses, and you didn't show up to play. And to wrap up this Mets convo, because quite frankly, we have all offseason to talk about this, unfortunately. But the Mets have a lot of free agents, between Chris Bassett, Seth Lugo, Jacob DeGrom, Brandon Nimmo. A lot of their key guys are going into free agency. So Austin, as an outside Philly baseball fan, as I just gag in my mouth saying that, what, just as an outside voice, like, what do you think the Mets can do to improve a roster that won 101 games but could be losing some key pieces?
Yeah, when you're losing some of these guys, I mean, we have to see with like the bigger names, DeGrom and Diaz. I think those are 2 of the top 3 guys that you're gonna want to bring back. But outside of this Mets team right now, some guys they could look at. I mean, I would take a Wilson Contreras, get someone officially behind the plate if you don't want to put Alvarez back there right away, or just another bat in Contreras with power and can hit all over, which is what they need. Or the long shot. I mean, I don't know if it's a long shot, but you could take a shot on Judge. The Mets just could have used some more power in their lineup, and the guy who hit 62 home runs. That's as best power as you're going to get. So if they could get their hands on him, I mean, you go for it, but then you have a great chance of losing DeGrom in that situation. So I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so in terms of like the guys that are the Mets' own free agents, Diaz has to be back because bullpen is so important. I know he's going to probably demand a giant contract, but I feel like he's their most important free agent along with Brandon Nimmo. I feel like those 2 guys have to be back. Seth Lugo, I would try to get back on a decent deal, and Adam Ottavino on like a 2-year deal. Taijuan Walker, Chris Bassett, maybe one of them, but but probably focus on more depth. Trevor May, as much as I enjoyed him, I think I let him go. He didn't have a great year, and I feel like I could find a better arm on the free agency market for a bit cheaper money. And then that leaves Jacob DeGrom as the internal. And the Jacob DeGrom question is so complicated when it really shouldn't be. At the end of the day, the DeGrom question should be, yeah, he's a Met for life. What do you mean? But it's a matter of like, and yes, you have Steve Cohen. He should be able to spend, in theory, all the money in the world and it not matter. Yes. There are rumors that DeGrom wants anywhere from a 40 per mil to 50 per mil year dollar contract, which, quite frankly, for a guy that has barely been able to be on the field for the better part of 2, probably even 3 years. For a guy that, yeah, he had a great playoff start, but that faltered down the stretch. And like I said before, already had the injury risk associated. Do you really want to attach another 50 mil per year to a guy like him when you're already doing that with Max Scherzer? Or, and this where your point comes in, would you rather dedicate that money to the guy that just broke the AL single season home run record? And I'm not saying that that's repeatable on Judge's part, but the Mets have a desperate need for power in their lineup. They have the pieces to get on base. They have the pieces that can start rallies, but you need more power. Your power solely came from 2 players this year, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. In theory, and in this theory, obviously Brandon Nimmo comes back. What does a lineup that instead of Mark Canha in left field now has Starling Marte in left field and Aaron Judge in right with Nimmo in center? So that lineup then turns into, I don't know how you put them in order, but Nimmo in center, Judge in right, Marte in left, probably Escobar, who had an insane last month and a half of the season, at third with probably Brett Beatty ready to roll soon after, Lindor at short, McNeil at second, Alonso at first, and Francisco Alvarez behind the plate, with probably Tomas Nido as the guy flipping back and forth with him. That's a deep lineup if you're able to pull that off. Will the Yankees let him leave? Quite frankly, they shouldn't, but Judge is going to demand that ridiculous type of money. As Ted says, they're a New York franchise, pony up. I'm sure you got the money. Yes, but there's a difference between having the money to spend and also spending it smartly. And yes, this is the one sport where that doesn't matter as much as others, but it still does to an extent. If not Judge, another player I would enjoy and I think would have a decent shot to come here, depending on what he's looking for in the contract, is Carlos Correa. Has that relationship with Lindor, could easily slide over to third base, and then you have one of the better, left sides of the infield in professional baseball. At the same time, there's going to be other free agents that pop up that decline options, accept options. You can't really get a full picture for everything until the dust settles in the postseason. But the matter of fact is, this is going to be a very different Mets team from this past season. They need to make additions that bolster the weaknesses of the roster. And with Steve Cohen at the helm, I have confidence that they are. I have confidence that they're going to reach that pinnacle because they're not going to be cheap and want to do half measures like the Wilpons did. They're going to go all in whatever they decide to do to be all in.
Yeah. This is like the offseason here where you're going to have to just almost buy your fans back into it, I feel like, because you just ripped their hearts out like no other. And Cohen said, I'm going to spend all the money, which he has, but he's just going to just unload the Brinks trucks, bring all you got, and get every piece that you need filled out to the best of your ability and get the best guys you can.
Absolutely. And now it's time for our last segment of the show that we have scheduled. Playoff previews for the Yankees and analyzing the rest of the MLB postseason. So, starting off with the other New York squad, and then we'll circle back to the rest. The Yankees face the Guardians. And the Guardians, in theory, should not be a real test, quote unquote, for the Yankees on paper. In practice, it might be a bit of a different story because the Yankees' strength is their lineup. The Guardians' strength is their pitching, specifically starting pitching and Emmanuel Clase coming out of the bullpen. There is, and I do this at risk of making some fans mad, there is a decent less than zero possibility that the Yankees do lose this series, and it all comes down to their own pitching. Because if the Yankees pitching shows up, their lineup's eventually going to break through. But if the Yankees lineup falters in any way, which they did show signs of over the back half of the year, then the Cleevalnd Guardians pitching staff could take advantage of that. Whether it's Tristan McKenzie, Shane Bieber, they got some younger prospects that are ready to step up. This is a pitching staff that is dangerous, and that could be a dark horse that affects a lot of the Yankees lineup if the Yankees lineup doesn't come to play in this series.
Yeah, I think recently over the past month or two, we've seen the Yankees pitching fluctuate from being top dogs to getting hit around a little bit, getting beat up, and then we've seen the hitting do the same thing. We've seen the hitting just explode at any time and hit the ball 500 feet whenever they want to. But sometimes it's just not the case, which is why I think the whole series for the Yankees, not the whole thing, but a lot of it comes down tonight to two guys, Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge. They can't win. I mean, they could, but they can't do it all for him. But if Judge is hitting a home run and Cole's striking out 10, pitching 7 innings, they shouldn't lose this game. Garrett Cole cannot have one of those games where he just implodes and gives up 2 home runs in the first, and then he's just all out of whack after that.
Yeah, and circling back to our predictions, we both have the Yankees moving on to the ALCS. I'm just highlighting the fact that as the Guardians, the team I picked to advance, Austin, take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just highlighting the fact that the Guardians have this pitching staff that is kind of tailor-made to take a lineup heavy team out of the equation when it's not strength versus strength of the other pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one strength versus the other, like you said, and we've seen it all the time in MLB playoffs. There's always some dark horse team killing someone and getting through to the next round all the time. Happens all the time, and it very well could happen to anyone.
Exactly. And now with the rest of the postseason, because we can still talk about it because the New York team is still alive. We got on the NL side, obviously the Padres defeated the Mets. There goes my NL World Series pick. And yeah, that sucks, to be honest. On the other side, the Phillies defeated the Cardinals, which we both predicted here on this show. And that led to game 1 of today's series, which I had the Braves advancing. Austin, did you have Atlanta advancing as well?
Unfortunately, but I'm teaming up with David here.
Yeah, David, and that leads perfectly into David's comment here. Philadelphia Phillies will sweep the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves. It's ironic because we both picked Atlanta, but on this show, we did both say that, hey, the Phillies aren't just going to roll over in this series, and that they were going to come out and compete and make sure that they were going to at least put up a fight. And the Phillies ended up winning by a score of 7-6. They almost, had a classic Philadelphia/New York moment because I have been there before. That is not fun. But they held on. They beat Atlanta in Atlanta. And considering that this is a series that is only best of 3, and considering that the Phillies still have the front line of their rotation to go, the Phillies hold the cards now. And that is something crazy to say, especially for an Atlanta team that also won over 100 games. Could you imagine if both Atlanta and the Mets, the two dominant teams all year in the NL East, are gone after the second round?
Give me chills just thinking about it. I can't. it's just playoff baseball, dude. It's just insane because it's the first time I've watched it and had to get into it since I was like 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't even know. And it's just insane. Every pitch is so intense. And now that I'm so deep into it, it doesn't even have to be the Phillies game. It's like, oh, the Yankees game tonight. I'm going to be in every pitch. Just wow, one swing of the bat could send this game off the rails. It's nuts. I love it.
Yeah, and I feel like especially in this Atlanta series, the first game was dominated by Nicholas Castellanos. And it's funny because this is a guy that just faltered for so much during the year. He had the game of his season. If Castellanos is Castellanos, that completely transforms the Phillies offense.
Yeah, if he turns into what they've been waiting since April for, then that's a totally different team than what you got because it just makes the lineup another guy deeper. And when he's on top of his game, we've seen it in the past. He's a very good baseball player. And today he made a sliding catch at the end of the game. He's playing some great defense in a spot where he probably shouldn't be, like playing defense every single day. He's been great at it, and it's improved every game.
So shifting back to the NL series of the team that beat the Mets and the Dodgers. All right, I'll say the Padres and the Dodgers. I still feel confident, right, in the Dodgers advancing. But I'm not like this. Oh, the Dodgers are just going to walk over San Diego. I truly don't think that's going to happen. I think San Diego is this dark horse team. Because remember what everyone said after they traded for Juan Soto. This is a World Series contender now. Obviously, that's before the Fernando Tatis suspension. But this is a team that still has a lot of offensive talent. Trent Grisham, all of a sudden, is now an absolute monster at the plate. Manny Machado is a top 10 player in baseball. You got Josh Bell. You got Cronenworth. And most importantly, you have Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, you have Mike Clevenger, and you have Blake Snell.
And I don't even know if I heard you say it. They have Juan Soto too. You probably said it, and I just missed it.
I
But
said they traded for Juan Soto.
oh, I didn't hear you. But either way, this team just woke up completely, and you're throwing them against the Dodgers, who's I guess arguably the best team in baseball right now, and just has been for the past few years. It's a divisional game, which makes it even 10 times more interesting because we know in a division series, just almost anything can happen. And the rivalries there, this series is going to be so good. I mean, the Padres definitely have a chance. Like you said, they're not going to get rolled over. No reason to. But I do think Dodgers win it. I mean, stick with my prediction there.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with mine too, that I don't have. But I have to make a new one considering the Mets got eliminated.
Yeah.
I think the Dodgers advance. I think the Dodgers advance. And I think it goes 5. I think this type of series that we look back on like, wow, what a series. This was like one of the series of the decade, quote unquote.
The star power out there is just insane.
Yeah.
But it's almost every game in the playoffs.
And it's like we said last week, the NL is just this deep, deep, deep division, or not division, league. Every team has a shot. Every single team has a shot. And
best part about it.
Shifting back to the AL, obviously the Guardians knocked off the Rays. Not really much to write home about, except that those two pitching staffs are absurd. The Guardians had a bit more offense, and that's why they advanced. And, I feel like the bigger focus, at least in the wild card series, was the Mariners Blue Jays, because the Mariners not only had their first playoff appearance in about 20 years, they won their first playoff series. And currently, if we look at the scores right now, if I pull this up, The Mariners are up 6-3 on the Houston Astros against Justin Verlander. The Mariners are a dark horse. They truly are. They are a dark horse team. They're a team that is going to give people issues, that they are going to be scrappy, and you could argue is the quote-unquote team of destiny.
I mean, yeah, it seems like they were just built for this. They're just young. They're fun to watch. I love the circle dance at the end of like the walk-offs and the wins and stuff. Just gets me pumped up. And that comeback on the Blue Jays in their house, that's not even getting enough love, I feel like. It's just a historical comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so underrated. It'll get more press if they beat the Astros in this series.
Yeah, if they just keep going. They will just keep lighting up. Their pitching has done really well as well. That was a great series. They're a great team.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my prediction of the Astros advancing, but I think once again, I think it goes 5. And then we shift to the Yankees Guardians series, which we touched on. So now to close out the postseason baseball talk, predictions from this point forward. We obviously have went over today our previous predictions. I got the Guardians series right. I got the Mariners series right. On the NL, I got the Phillies right, and I lost my NL champion with the Mets. Austin, he got the Rays wrong, I think, right?
Yeah, I got the Rays wrong. I had the Blue Jays. So I got the AL wrong, and then I had the Phillies, and I had the Mets. Wow. So did I only get the Phillies?
Hey, it happened. So
worse than I thought.
We're gonna give you a shot at redemption here. Going throughout the rest of these series, from this point forward, you can either stick with your prediction, or because the wild card series is all over the place, we'll give you a one-time amnesty clause. One time, just one time to redeem it, to be able to change your predictions, and then we are rolling with these for the rest of the postseason. I'm going to wear the Mets just stab wound on my chest because that's me. That's what I do. So let's get it started. Austin.
Yes.
In the NL, who do you have going to the NLCS and who do you have winning the pennant?
All right. So last week I was a real hater on my own team. And I did think the Braves were going to win this series. After today, after this whole weekend, I'm full on board. Go Phils. They're on to the next round. And I think I said it when we were just talking about this game. I think just Dodgers going to be a little too much for the Padres. I think Dodgers, they have all that experience. They know how to handle their business. I think they're going to do it here. And they'll face the Phils in the NLCS. And then over on the other side, going to stick with my Yankees pick in the ALCS and stick with my Astros pick. I think those two are just destined to meet up one more time and just like whatever happens here, it's all over. Like the past, just wash it away or something. But from there, I think I'm going to stick with the Yanks. The Yanks are going to go to the World Series. And just like Ted says, Phillies on the Dodgers in October. Move them on. Let's go. We're going to have a repeat of 09, Yankees, Phils. Phils get the redemption. Go Phils. Ring the bell. We're here. Red October.
I'm going to have a heart attack if that actually happens.
I didn't label how many games these are going to go, so we'll do it real quick. We'll go Yankees in 4, Astros in 5, Dodgers in 4, Phils in 3.
Okay, so I'm going to start out with the dreaded series that I really don't feel like talking about between the two NL East rivals, the Phillies and Braves, because frankly, I would love to see neither of these teams advance. But to look at it from an analytical perspective, the fact that the Phillies won Game 1 in Atlanta, and the fact that they have, correct me if I'm wrong here, that they still have Nola and Wheeler to go in the next 2 games.
Wheeler tomorrow, Nola Friday.
There truly should be no reason that the Phillies lose this series now. Look, and I'll be real here. 0-0 series. I had Braves. I seriously had Braves. But the fact that the Phillies showed up like this against Atlanta proves that the Cardinal series was not a mirage. It proves that, once again, the regular season validates the postseason. The Braves and the Phillies are 100% on the same level when both teams are rolling. And the Braves got bested by the Phillies. And most importantly, and this is the most important thing about this series, the Phillies held off a Braves comeback. They didn't collapse, and they showed themselves that despite a team coming back, they can hold the fort down. That's the most important thing because that's going to give them the confidence going into game 2 and game 3. I got the Phillies in 4. The next series, Dodgers Padres.
Wait, which of Wheeler or Nola's start did they lose? I'm just curious.
I think they lose the Wheeler one, and I think Nola slams the door, and then I think the series is decided at home in Philly, which, oh boy, if the Phillies clinch a series at home, that's going to be the loudest stadium they've had in about a decade.
Yeah, it's Cowboys week on Sunday Night Football too for the Birds.
Yeah. Other series, I'm going to stand by this. I think it's going 5. I think the Dodgers-Padres series is going 5. And I'm not backtracking myself on the previous series we talked about with the Phillies-Braves because I never gave a game or series prediction with that. So NLCS obviously is Phillies-Dodgers. I'm going to go opposite here. As hot as the Phillies have been in the postseason and as realistic as it is to say, it's not about the regular season all the time. It's about what team catches fire at the right time in the postseason. I just don't see how the Dodgers don't make the World Series. I truly don't. I think they just have the right makeup, the right build as a team. And I think that they're just able to simply get the job done. I think the Dodgers win, though, in 6. I do think the Phillies put up a fight. But I think the Dodgers are just built for October. They have all that playoff experience, and I think they end up advancing to another World Series. On the AL side, I think that the Yankees do advance because I think that their lineup does overcome the Guardians pitching. I think they win it in 4. And we're going with another hot take because my eyes have been opened. The Mariners are the team of destiny. The Mariners will beat the Astros in 5. I think the fact that they showed that they can beat Verlander at Houston Stadium shows that they are for real, that they are this talented. I do think the Astros take
on them.
I do think the Astros take a game or 2, but and I'm completely switching up from what I said about 10 minutes ago. Oh, the Astros are still my World Series pick. I gotta spice it up because, quite frankly, when I said the Astros are still my World Series pick, I didn't realize Verlander had a 6 spot hung up on him. But
yeah, it's upset we don't know the outcome of this game yet. But
yeah,
that's what happens.
This is happening live during the game.
Fix your scheduling, MLB.
Exactly. But I do think the Mariners surprise Houston and take it to 5 and end up winning because defeating Verlander, the Astros have a few pitchers close to him, but not really on that level. And like I said last week, the Mariners pitching is legit. Luis Castillo just is a dominant presence. So ALCS, Yankees, Mariners. Gonna have to go with the Yankees because I think the Yankees are just built for October and they get the easier matchup than the 1 seed, which is pretty interesting. But I think that because the Mariners play such a tight series in advance, and then they have to go into New York in a playoff New York environment. I think the Yankees take care of business in 6. So that brings us to the World Series. It is Yankees Dodgers. I got the Dodgers winning in 7.
Dodgers in 7 over the Yanks. Yeah, that was my that's what I was going with last week. I think I had the Yankees over the Dodgers, but now we're on the Phil's train. And before we completely or do what we're doing with baseball after this, you see the Mariners, they're taking over the NFL. They're pushing the Seahawks game time back because they don't want them to collide. Baseball on top.
Yeah. Very interesting, but Seattle, when the Mariners are good, they are a baseball town. It is honestly incredible to see because they get behind that team unlike anything I've ever seen.
The 10th man.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take a few questions now. If you guys want to throw some questions in the chat, go ahead. Catching up on a few of them. We got Kyle saying full PPR. Which RB would you trade George Pickens for? Raheem Mostert or Travis Etienne? My receivers are Chase, Diggs, Adams, and Pittman. Yeah, it's Mostert. No question. He has taken over the Miami backfield. I know personally I have picked up Chase Edmonds on free agency, but that has nothing to do with Mostert and his role. It's more so future proofing that if Mostert goes down with an injury like he has in the past, I have a nice running back to pick up. Then we got Nick in the chat. Should I target a new QB? My team is Goff. I think that's Russell Wilson, so I'm guessing it's a 2-quarterback league. Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Tyler Lockett, Hopkins, Moore, Michael Thomas, Everett, and Conklin. So, regarding Jared Goff, if we pull up the Lions schedule here, they're currently 1-4. You got the Cowboys, Dolphins, Packers, and Bears as your next few games. So, if you want to go more the streaming route, I fully understand. I fully, agree with that line of thinking. Russell Wilson, you cannot play until he proves that he is okay as a quarterback that is fantasy valuable right now. I would probably just target some streaming. I would probably,
You have the pieces.
Yeah.
You can go make a deal. Just like an example, last year, my league, as we got deeper in the season, I didn't really have a quarterback and trade for Hurts. Obviously, it's going to take a lot more to do that now. But someone like who you think can have a big second half of the season, honestly, you have the pieces to make a deal. And if you wanted to get Hurts, you probably could. You have a bunch of guys on your team who are very good.
Yeah, you could also just target matchups. Just look at guys that are playing some weaker defenses. Like if any quarterback is on the free agent market that is playing Seattle, pick him up. If any quarterback is on the free agent market that is playing Detroit, pick them up. Those are the two teams I would consistently target in like those matchups. What do you call it? We got another guy. We got Timothy in the chat. Go Phillies.
Go Phils, baby.
And that brings us to essentially the last 10 minutes of the show, which is our nice hot take portion. If you guys, by the way, want to keep leaving comments in the chat, go ahead. We'll touch on them, but it's time for the hot take portion of the show. Like I mentioned previously, I hit on the Matt Rule hot take prediction that he would be fired in the next week or two. He got fired yesterday. So, to start off our hot take portion, and Austin, just to fill you in, obviously, NFL, if you want to do some MLB, we got NHL coming up, NBA. We'll touch on that a little bit before we head out. It can be about anything. So make it fun, make it spicy. If you guys got some hot takes in the chat, Leave them.
Throw 'em in.
We've seen some good ones already. But I'm gonna start off here. Cliff Kingsbury will not make it the rest of the season. And I say this knowing that they have Kyler at quarterback that saves them from a lot of different things. But looking at their schedule, they do play the Seahawks, they play the Saints, then the Vikings, Seahawks again, then Rams, 49ers, Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, Bucks. Is it more realistic to say that Kingsbury doesn't make it after the year because he gets fired after the Cardinals don't make the playoffs? Yes. But at the same time, if he drops any of the Seattle games, which is a possibility because the Cardinals defense isn't great, on top of losing the games that they're supposed to lose, such as probably the 49ers and Rams games, then I don't think Kingsbury makes it the entire year. Is that really a blazing hot take? No, I'd say it's more mild, but I really don't think Cliff Kingsbury makes it the entire year because I also think that there's going to be a rift that comes up between him and Kyler if there isn't already.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a little rift there. And I don't hate your take because last week, what did I say? The Cardinals be top 5 in the draft order, which, hey, you never know. But my first hot take of the day, we'll go with this one. Steelers defense, this is just one I hope to see. They will rise to the challenge and shut down the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tomlin is pretty much owned by, it's either Belichick or Brady, both, whichever one. Well, they lost to Belichick a few weeks ago, and now here comes Brady. Everyone's questioning Tomlin and their whole coaching staff. I mean, the Steelers are kind of known in their history to play up to opponents and play down to opponents. I think they do it this week. They'll rise to the challenge, beat the Bucks, go Steelers.
Oh boy, you're not gonna like me for the one I say next, then, my friend, because my second hot take.
What record's getting broken?
And I think that it kind of elaborates on one I talked about last week, if not very similar. I do not think that the Steelers have a winning record this year, but more importantly, I think that they are a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, if not top 5 this year. Why is that the case? Well, their upcoming schedule, they play the Buccaneers, the Dolphins, who should be a bit healthier by then, the Eagles, the Saints, and then they got the Bengals, Colts, Falcons, Ravens, Panthers, Raiders, Ravens, Browns. To be quite honest with you, and I know it's the NFL and things happen, I do not see more than 3 wins on that schedule going forward. Quite honestly, especially with the fact that you're having a rookie quarterback that's adjusting, your play calling isn't great, and your defense is getting eviscerated. So, once again, unless the Steelers change my mind, they will not win more than 3 games the rest of the season.
You might be right, and I'll take the number 1 pick. Embrace the tank. And for mine, we'll go. All right, so I'm saying somehow that the Tennessee Titans will rely so heavy on Derrick Henry, and it will work out somehow so well, just better than in the past, and he wins MVP. They finally, rightfully crown the king as the MVP of the league.
Okay. That's that's a take.
First two weeks did not play that great. He's back. He's ready to run, and he's gonna do it.
That's definitely a take.
Spicy.
Absolutely. My third one, and I guess this will be my last football one, and then I'll give you guys a non-football one as well. My last football one is that the Las Vegas Raiders will still make the playoffs this season. Because looking at their upcoming schedule, they got the Texans, Saints, Jags, Colts, Broncos, Seahawks, Chargers, Rams, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Chiefs. Opposite of the Steelers, I do see a good amount of wins in that schedule. And quite frankly, the Raiders have not been losing by much. It's been one little mistake that has cost them games. Quite frankly, they should have 3, maybe even 4 wins at this point of the season. The Raiders have the talent. I think they have the coaching. And I think that they will continue to improve and win all the games that they are supposed to this season and be one of the few teams that starts off with a 1-4 record and ends up sneaking into the playoffs.
I like it. I mean, it's definitely possible. It's starting to put points up. Devontae caught a long one yesterday. I'm ready to see more of that. But I'll go with my third one. Still slightly crafting it up. But we're going to say, call me a homer, but Joel Embiid will win both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year this year. His defensive skills, personally believe, are criminally underrated. He's a dog. He's should have been MVP. The past 2 seasons, been robbed by Jokic. And this is the year he does it. He's getting it. And the deep pool. Trust.
All right, that's a prediction. And the last one that is non-football related, the New York Knicks will make the playoffs this season. There, I said it. I'm putting it out there. Is it gonna bite me in the butt? Maybe. We shall see. I really hope not, though.
Wait, I think we got. Is there hockey game tonight? Is the Rangers tonight?
Yeah, the Rangers do play tonight.
Right.
Yeah, very, very excited for their season to start. Obviously, didn't end the way I wanted it to, but they're a very young and talented team, and I'm very excited to see how they perform this season. I know the Flyers supposed to be this absolute juggernaut this year, right, Austin?
Yeah, the Philadelphia Flyers. They'll be lucky to get like 30 points. It's pretty bad how bad they are. But no, I'm excited to see tonight. Lightning, Rangers, repeat of last year of the conference final, which is always good. I love some good hockey, and Rangers will be very good this year. Unfortunately,
it's very fortunately for the host
for some,
the city that never sleeps show. And I'm very excited for basketball to get started too, because RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, they got me where the New York Mets have failed. Famous last words, right?
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, on that note, that has brought us to the end of the City That Never Sleeps show. Thank you guys for joining us on another great episode of the show. We'll be back next Tuesday, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, talking about all things New York and whipping around the NFL, giving you guys a little bit of hockey insight too, and, MLB postseason update, because there's one thing about the MLB postseason is that you never know what is going on. Austin, any final words you have before we sign off today?
No, it's great. Just be here next Tuesday. See you guys then. Keep leaving us comments and stuff. I love answering questions. Go Phils as the rest of the week comes. Hopefully they advance to the next round. See you guys next Tuesday.
So, once again, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, our other social media pages, Instagram as well. Thank you guys for joining us on another great episode, and we'll catch you next time.